Hello YouTube and welcome back to W140 Restorations. In this episode of Project Heidi, we shed some light on everything having to do with these Xenon headlights for R129s. They're rather complicated and we need to fix these and work on some mid-90s wiring. So come along in this next episode as we work on the front of Project Heidi. So from the front of the passenger side, HID Xenon assembly, it doesn't look bad, right? It looks like any normal one would, but on the closer inspection, we have lots of issues. We have what's considered friable wiring. The insulation is caking off and breaking off, and this snakes all the way through Heidi to the inner fender well, two holding on from the top and one through the inner fender. So what we're going to attempt to do is we're going to take off the cover plate. You'll see that. That's how corroded that is. Before I get too far into it, I need to look and see if there's any capacitors. One thing I don't want to do is fry myself, but this wiring is shot. Holy goodness. So, yeah, that's not good. There's a nice gasket. Oh, look at that. Didn't even have to pull the back case off yet. Looks like we got some pins to pull and there's some wires to trace. All right, let's focus on getting it out from the other side. Now this is a safety Torex, not just a Torex, so we'll have to guessing about a T15. Let's take a look here. Nope. Maybe a T20. All right, it's a safety Torex because it's got a hole in the middle. T20. Let's get our driver and try to take that off. And there's three we have to pull off the back side of the headlight housing. All right, let's see what she's got. See if there's more secrets. We'll pull off the high beam. Oh, yeah, it looks fun. Good times. All right. Looks like more work to do inside the headlight assembly as well. Yep. All right, I'm just pushing the insulation through. See if I can free up this assembly. Okay, those look like they screw into the back of the terminal. I'm also going to take pictures of everything to make sure that I don't lose sight of where all the wires came from and where they're going to and what they look like before I started disassembling everything. I want to make sure I keep the pins in order, the wires in order, and everything go back together. I also need to trace down the color of the wire, if possible. If any of the shielding is still on here, along here, and chase the wires so I can follow them all the way through. Along the wire and harness. All right, next I'm going to make a template so I don't lose sight. I've taken lots of pictures, but I don't want to lose sight of exactly what color wire is going into what pin on this end, because I have to do the same exact thing and try to trace these wires down after I loosen these, and then I can follow them through to make sure that that yellow wire there equates to this yellow wire over here, whichever one it is. So again, slow process to chase wires and backtrack. And part of it is drawing a diagram. All right, 4 is green, which makes 3 red, 2 is yellow, and 1 is brown. Yeah, if you can look in here, it's really hard to see, but you can see the color of the wire when it goes into the pins, that the second one is yellow, and that matches up to what we've determined here. So brown, yellow, red, green, and 5 and 6 are a loop. I recognized pretty quickly that I need to take this rubber gasket off so I can take the front glass off so I can get to the innards of the headlight assembly, so I can get this wire right here that goes to the back of the Xenon assembly out, because it's connected to this one. So very delicately, if you lift this gasket up, you will see that there is a hole, and what comes out of that hole is the smallest body panel push pin you've ever seen. And ever so gently, using a push pin, I push that through. But as I've started to lift this up very slowly, and I mean very slowly, there's one that's missing from right here, but there's one that's on down. And I need to make sure I don't tear it out, but I push it out. There it is. There's the pin, and there's the assembly. You guys see that? Out it comes. So there's 2 in this one, Make sure I save those. And then off she comes. So I can take the front and the back apart. You can see these clips. I'm actually going to put some sort of protectant on them and let them soak for quite some time, because the last thing in the world that I want to do is break this. These are very, very expensive. That's why I'm taking so much time to go through and to see if I can repair the wiring in these. They can almost cost they can almost cost more than a parts car, to be honest with you. They're very expensive, especially for the Xenons. So let's see what we can do to take this one apart. Okay, I have let it soak. I took out the hidden screw on the side that holds the front from the back. I have my body panel tools, and very, very delicately, I'm going to try to attempt to separate the front from the back without this thing snapping. I'm really, 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 really worried. The bottom ones are off. The bottom ones are starting to pull away. The bottom ones are separated. Okay, what's it hanging on? Bottom ones are loose. Oh, please don't break. Come on. Nope. There it goes. Oh, baby. Come on. Oh, there it is. Woo! Holy crap. That that took a tremendous amount of patience. So much. I'm not a patient person, and that took forever to get apart. You can see the items that are in the cover that needs to be cleaned from the inside out. We will get to that in a minute. Move my drill, set that aside, and then this assembly should pop out. There's one, the other's already loose. There's one down, there's three. One up top and two on the bottom that I could see because I'm trying to get to this wire to get this wire loose. So let's see if I can gingerly get it to give up the ghost. There it goes. All right. And the front bezel assembly is loose, and I can clean that up because it is dirty. There's all sorts of stuff that's been in there for Lord knows how long. And finally I can turn this around, take out this ballast, and get this wire connector out because I have to rebuild it. The only thing holding it in, 2 Phillips screws. Out she comes, and so did our wiring harness. And all that to get this out. Man alive. for a sense of scale, of how much work and time it's taken to get that one connector out. And unfortunately, I've got 2 to do. All right, I've cleaned up the mess that was sitting here for everything for the headlight being taken apart. But one of the things that I have to do is to pull these pins out of this harness that corresponds with the headlight system. So I bought a D-pinning tool set, bought it on Amazon, relatively inexpensive. Who knew there were so many different types of pins and different tools? But what I found for these pins in here particularly is this gizmo right here, and have never done this before, but you notice it fits in the notches, and basically push it past the barbs in the pin, and then once it releases, you've got the pin. And I'm gonna have to do this for all 6, and these appear to be double crimped. There's a crimp here and a crimp here, and this little silicone type gasket to keep moisture from falling down in the backside. Not something you can buy online. This is something you can only repair unless you want to buy a brand new headlight set. So we're gonna have to go ahead and de-pin all 6 and keep them in order, and then look at reusing them with the new wire harness that we're gonna have to build for the headlight system. And there's the next one coming loose, but this one happens to be in the horseshoe, so we're going to pull one, and the other one, and that's how they come out. And you can see they're got these little barbs right here. And once they go inside, they expand in the cavity so they can't be pulled back out. So this is what we have to replace. This wire's just shot. Alright, and that's all 6 pins out. Hopefully you can see through the back side here the holes where they came out of, and we'll get this cleaned up. But we have to start working on some other things. Alright, now that we've de-pinned this part, on the other end of this wiring harness was this gem. And now we have to work on this. You'll notice the wires look black. That's because the copper has absolutely started to mix with the air, and the oxygen in the air and oxygen in copper starts to oxidize, and it turns green and then black, just like an old penny or a copper roof. And we need to replace these. And unfortunately, the only thing I can come up with is to drill these off of here, and then to tap the backside of these pins, because these pins do not come out. They're formed into this plastic piece, and I really couldn't think of another way to fix it. You don't want to solder to this. It's just going to continue to do this and continue to get worse. And these you really don't want to reuse. It's just way too far gone. So I think the next is going to be attempting to come up with a way to have these wires connect to the back side of these pins, which I want to keep, but this which I want to get rid of. So let's see how it goes. All right, the heads are starting to get bigger, and hopefully they will, the rivets will popped off. They appear to be a kind of a rivet type situation where they were molded together. So we'll see if we can drill the heads off and then tap them. I think that's the best plan moving forward is to go ahead and drill the heads off, like I said, then use a tap set and then tap them, and then use a very small hardware, but nut and a bolt washer combo to reattach the new connectors. So I'm gonna keep going down this path until either it works or we have to step back and punt. Okay, there's the first one to come off. There is the second one to come off. All right. You can see what we need to replace. And let's see if we can get the other ones off. All right, and the last one off. Off camera, I figured out what I was gonna do with these. So these are the pins that are in the backside of this wiring harness. They fit from the outside in, and the way that I drilled the heads off, they just kind of pop in from the front. And I thought about, how am I going to get anything to connect to this? So first step is clean them up a little bit, and the second is going to be to drill a hole and use a tap, and tap this with the smallest thread that I have readily available. Car is German, it's metric, so I first thought of 3mm, and I really don't have any readily available hardware at the local hardware stores for something that small. Everything they carry is 4mm. So next closest thing, actually just a tiny bit smaller, is 4x40, a very small thread. So what we're gonna do is clean these up. We're gonna drill the backside out, and then we're gonna tap, and let's go ahead and do that for all three of these. All right. Yeah, you can see the difference. Those cleaned up versus one that really hasn't been cleaned up very well. So next is going to be taking a look at the hardware I got. And this is the 4x40 hardware, really small. I couldn't find the 3mm, and figuring out the depth of how far it needs to be in there, setting the depth on my drill bit, and then tapping it with all this. So you can see just a sense of scale of how small this stuff actually is. What it's going to look like. This drill bit is a number 43. The number 43 drill bit is the corresponding with the 4x40, and we're gonna have to go to the bench vise and set these straight up and down, and then be very careful with these drill bits and drill it out, and then tap it out, and then use our hardware to hold the new wire connectors on the back side. So let's head to the bench vise. All right, everybody, we're at our bench, and this is my bench vise, and I put some masking tape so it wouldn't mar the outside of these connectors. I only have 3 of them, and there is a conical shape from where we drilled out the old wiring off of it. You can see that or not, but it's a great starting point for us to use our drill bit to drill straight down. We don't want to go left or right. We want to make sure it's straight up and down so we can tap it so we got a good connection for our wiring. So let's go ahead and do that next. Here goes. On the next one, I wanted to give you all a perspective of my perspective. You got to make sure it's straight up and down. That's the most important thing, and looking at it from multiple sides for how you're drilling. Look at that. And it's smack dab in the middle. Nailed it. It's right there. You guys can see that or not. It's right in the center. It's exactly what you want. So I thought of a lot of ways to how to do this, to how to make the connections and how to get the wires on. I think this is the best way. I didn't know if this was going to accept a solder or not. I couldn't press them back on, so threading it and using hardware is probably the best solution in trying to restore these headlights. Beautiful. Next, we're going to want to put a little bit of cutting oil on tap, just a little bit. Set it straight up and down. Start slowly turning it in. And you'll feel it, if you've done this before, you'll feel it start to bite. You go a little bit forward, a little bit backwards. There we go. I don't want to go too fast, but at the same time you want to make sure you're keeping pressure on it as it goes down. Just backwards and forwards, taking your time. Oh, feel it starting to bottom out. There's a type of tap called the bottoming tap. That's not what these are. These are just regular taps, and that's it. You should be, yep, look at that. Threads are cut, and you can take this out and make sure that all are like that. There's gonna be some fine threads on it, but you all can see that there's a little cut threads inside there, and that's what our hardware is going to go into. All right, one step closer. Okay, everybody, after tapping these 3 pins and having the stainless steel hardware that corresponds with it, the next problem was really sourcing another low beam wiring harness. You can see there's no insulation and these are shot. So I found wire ends that are exactly the same size for this gauge wire, so that problem was solved. But how to recreate this? Well, I happen to know a guy, who knows where a few recycling yards are. Colors are exactly the same. This came out of a W140 low beam headlight from recycled W140. The colors are exactly the same, brown and white for the low beam on the R129 as well. And I will show you that they are exactly, and I do mean exactly, the same connectors and looms, both, I'm sorry, I said low beam, high beam both high beams. So that's what we're gonna use. Back through. There they are. And then I've got 3 mating surfaces on the back side. Okay. And on to the next ones as well, because I got more light wire. The low beam. Okay, I push the pins through and I follow my wiring diagram, and white goes on bottom and brown goes on top. So I have been dropping a washer, getting it where it needs to go, and then following it up with the stainless steel 4x40 little machine head screw, and putting that in together and nice and tight. So that is how we're going to move forward on wiring the rest of the headlights, which brings me to another problem. Let me set this out of the way. Okay, gloves back on because this is fiberglass and I don't want to get it all over myself. But start in reverse order, just to do this so I can have an understanding of how much wire I need. Would be the plug that goes into the back. This, of course, would go into the high beam, probably a little bit too long, but I'll deal with that when the time comes. And then my wire for the rest of this is going to come underneath, come through, and then loop around. And there's 4 in here. Like I said, it's 12-4, so there's 4 individual wires inside here. The yellow is going to go to the bottom pin. That's how I have it marked on my wiring diagram. And then 2 of the wires are going to loop back around and then go into the back of the ballast right here. So I need to have enough distance for this to loop under, back around, and then to make the turn and go in the back of this back here. So I'm going to give myself a pretty good distance of wire, and I have to cut the sheeting all the way back. So just going to mark with my fingers, pull it out. I'm using a razor knife and try to pull all the sheeting off from this mark moving forward. Just a little notch so I know where I'm going to start working from. All right, I'm going to do that off camera. All right, there it is. I got it pulled out, separated. So this is going to go in the harness that we have been working on. That's going to come through. We will secure it so it doesn't slip back out. And instead of the original red, green, yellow, and brown, we've got red and yellow, but we will pick which one is going to stand in for the green and which one is going to stand in for the brown. That affords us the ability to run this yellow, which will be shortened up a bunch, to tie back to this bottom pin because that's yellow, and then the red to go over to the back here, and then we'll probably make black the new brown and white to the green, or however we decide, and then start wiring this back up. We got our new pin set and our new insulators here when they get delivered.